Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take complex topics, sort of unpack them, and get right to what you need to know. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something pretty specific and really fascinating, an advocacy guide. It's all about formally asking Google to display Jerusalem as the capital in its services for Palestine.
Yeah, and this guide, it really gives us a unique look into how a highly organized campaign works, how they aim to influence the information, the stuff displayed by a huge tech platform like Google.
Right, across everything, Knowledge Panel, search results, Google Maps.
Exactly. It's all about the strategy, the approach they take to demand a change in how this really critical geographical info is presented.
So our mission today is basically to understand the mechanics of this advocacy. We'll look at the arguments, the demands, the tactics. You'll see just how detailed this kind of thing can get. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. The source material, it highlights a major concern, right? The current display, or maybe the lack of a clear display of the capital for Palestine in Google's services. What's the core argument here?
Well, what's really interesting is that the document argues the way things are now is, and I'm quoting here, misleading for many users. And also that it does not reflect available historical and legal sources.
Misleading. Okay.
Yeah, and it states pretty clearly that the designation of a capital carries historical and legal weight. So it frames the whole issue not just as like a missing label, but as something much deeper, a matter of historical and legal accuracy.
Okay. So it's really not just about a simple label on a map. It's tied into these much bigger ideas of history and law.
Precisely. That's the weight they're putting on it.
So this isn't just a general complaint then. The document gets into very specific demands for Google. What exactly are they asking the company to do?
Right. It's very concrete. They lay out 3 specific requests for Google.
Okay.
First, publish publicly the factual criteria and sources used by Google to determine the mentioned capital in the Palestine profile.
Yeah.
Basically, they're calling for transparency. Show us how you make these decisions.
So open up the black box, essentially. What's the second one?
Second, they want Google to open a documented and transparent review process, taking into account historical positions, international decisions, and current claims. So they're pushing for like a collaborative reevaluation. An open one.
Documented and transparent. And the third?
And third, indicate the procedure and timeline allowing legitimate organizations to submit documents and sources for your verification process. They want a formal way in, a clear path to submit evidence.
Okay, so show your work, allow for review, and tell us how to submit stuff. It really does raise that big question, doesn't it? How much transparency should we even expect from tech platforms on these super sensitive geographical things?
That is the million-dollar question, really. Google has to balance so many things, international sources, local views. Demands like these push them to maybe formalize things that might otherwise stay internal.
Yeah, you can see how tricky that would be. Now, this document, you said it's like a playbook. What are the actual steps, the tactics they suggest?
Oh, yeah, it's very tactical, the whole itinerary. It kicks off with preparing a dossier.
A dossier. Okay, that sounds serious.
It is. Basically, gathering all the proof they can find to back up their case.
What kind of proof are we talking about? What goes in the dossier?
Well, the guide is pretty specific. It mentions including summaries or maybe excerpts of relevant international resolutions.
Okay, UN stuff maybe?
Could be, yeah. Also links to academic and historical publications about Jerusalem's role as a historical center, then official declarations from Palestinian groups or representatives.
Right, formal statements.
And importantly, screenshots of Google's current display, like here's the problem right now. And finally, a list of organizations signing on NGOs, media, universities to add weight and credibility.
Wow, that sounds like building a really solid case file. So once they have this dossier ready, how do they actually plan to get it to Google?
It's a multi-pronged approach, not just one thing.
Okay.
First, they suggest sending a formal request, an email, basically, to Google support or press contacts. And they even provide letter templates in both French and English.
Handy. What else?
Second, they also say to report the problem using the feedback tools directly on Google Maps or the Knowledge Panel. Those little send feedback links. Using a short pre-written message there too.
So a formal letter plus using Google's own feedback system. Clever. What about getting the public involved? Is it just behind the scenes?
Oh, no, definitely not. Public mobilization is a big part of it.
Right.
They recommend launching a public petition. They even suggest platforms like change.org and pushing it with specific hashtags like hashtag Jerusalem Capital and hashtag transparency.
Okay, so taking it public.
Yeah, and they also plan to diffuse a communique basically a press release or statement, through partners. They mention Arably News as an example, and using that to invite others to submit more evidence.
So it's not just a closed loop. They're actively trying to crowdsource more support and evidence.
Exactly. It's a very public-facing campaign alongside the direct engagement.
And it doesn't stop there, does it? I see mentions of PR.
Correct. It extends into full-on public relations action. That means contacting the press directly, submitting opinion pieces to international media outlets, and even trying to engage directly with Google's policy and trust and safety teams, people who deal with these kinds of issues internally.
So hitting it from all angles, what about follow-up? You can't just send this stuff off and hope for the best, right?
Absolutely not. The final step they emphasize is consistent follow-up. Things like requesting confirmation that Google received the request, sending reminders if they haven't heard back after, say, 14 days, and, importantly, publicly sharing any responses they do get from Google.
Keeping the pressure on and maintaining transparency themselves. Okay. This whole plan, it seems very aware of how big companies operate. Does the guide mention any specific points of caution for the campaigners? Things to watch out for?
Yes, definitely. That section is quite revealing, actually. It offers some real insights into advocating towards big tech. For instance, it notes that Google often complies with the balance between recognized international sources, UN, ministries, bodies, and local consensus.
Local consensus. That sounds complicated.
It is. And it adds, they can also display multiple views, which points to Google's, complex decision-making. It's not always just one answer.
So Google's juggling act is something campaigners need to anticipate. They might not get a simple yes.
Precisely. The document also gives a heads up that tech companies receive many similar requests, which means you really need to stand out.
How do they suggest doing that?
By being precise, sourced, and persistent. It explicitly states that a well-structured campaign, the petition, the dossier, the NGO support, increases your chances of obtaining a review.
Makes sense. Structure and persistence pay off.
And one last thing here, it tells campaigners to be ready to accept a technical response. Sometimes the answer might be framed in technical terms, and they need to be prepared for that and plan their own public communications around it.
Right, manage expectations and have a plan for different outcomes. That shows some real strategic thinking.
Absolutely. It underlines that you need foresight and just sheer persistence when you're dealing with these huge digital platforms.
So putting this all together, what does this really mean for you, our listener? This deep dive, I think it really shows the incredible level of planning, the meticulous, multi-pronged approach needed for a serious advocacy campaign, especially one targeting a tech giant like Google on such a geopolitically charged issue. It's almost a masterclass in strategic communication.
Yeah, it really is. This detailed blueprint we've walked through, from the deep evidence gathering to the direct engagement, the public pressure, it offers such a valuable insight into how organizations try to shape the information landscape we all navigate online. And it's kind of a testament to the idea that even these massive companies, they can potentially be influenced if the advocacy is organized, transparent, and really well-sourced.
Okay, and to leave you with something to think about. As things like digital maps and these knowledge panels become the go-to source of information for, billions of people, what role should tech companies play in deciding these complex geographical and political labels? And maybe more importantly, what responsibility do they have to be transparent about how they make those decisions, about their sources and their criteria? Something to mull over.